Hi, so today I'm going to be showing you how to install the EZ-BaseBuilding Asset. It's a simple modular base building asset which allows you to implement the base building mechanic into your project. That being said, I've made it fairly easy to expand upon. So if you're a programmer, you can add your own features, and if you're not, that's fine. You could just submit suggestions, and I'll be in constant communication with all of you that purchase this. As you know, I want to keep adding to this asset and keep building it for your needs effectively. I don't want it just to be how I want it, as I'm building it for you, so I want it to fit each and every one of your projects. So I'm going to continue to expand it after release, and take your features and your criticism and just your feedback in general on board, and try and work with you to get an asset that we've all contributed towards and enjoy effectively. So I've tried to exclude a lot of the bloat that other base building or modular building assets include, just so that if you're new to programming and you don't, or new to Unity for that matter, you don't really understand how the code interacts with the game objects, or how everything works effectively. You can just look at it and it's all commented for you. I've got documentation for it all. You can understand to a degree how I've made something quite complex work in a very simple way with not too many lines of code. I think it works with just over 350 lines of code, around that mark, which is very little for how much functionality there actually is with these game objects. Without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So I'm going to be using the standard asset pack from Unity, as I'm going to be using their first person camera. If you have your own, that's perfectly fine. You can use that. Just follow the steps that I do in actually hooking up the camera. And if you have your own project already set up working, you just want to add this mechanic in, it will work perfectly fine. It shouldn't have any have any conflictions with your already built scenes and what have you, because if you fill out the manager in the correct way, that's all the error handling it does. So if you're missing something out of there, then you would know about it. It wouldn't even run. But yeah, so you're going to want to install the EZ-BaseBuilding Asset Pack itself. So I've got it installed here. Let me just remove all this stuff from the scene. This is just because I actually had I recorded it twice already, but I end up filling the video with a lot of stuff or information you don't need to know. So I'm struggling to keep it simple. But my aim is to keep this under 10 minutes, so let's get straight into it. So you want to import the asset, which I've done here, and then you're going to want to import, so you're going to want to, if you don't have a terrain, you're going to want to put a terrain in, because you're going to be needing to walk around on it. So let's get terrain in, and then I'm going to drag in the first person camera from the standard assets pack by Unity. So you get to prefab first person camera and then just drag him out of the ground, that's fine. And that's enough for the initial setup. Like I said, if you have your own project already, you've probably got a terrain and a camera already in. So the first step to actually using the asset is you're going to want to create an empty game object and name it Building Manager, just like that. And then you're going to want to attach the Building Manager script to the game object itself. So you just want to go to base, type in base, and it should pop up the first one. Base Building Manager, that's the one you want to add. And then this is the actual manager where you configure how the asset will work. As you see, I've included loads of default values, which is what I've tested works well with the building parts and with the camera. But if you're importing this into your own project, feel free to mess around with these values and just stretch them so they fit your particular type of game. If you're just on a plain scene like I am and just want to get this working and see how it works and understand if you can change it in to match your sort of the feel of your game, that's fine. Just use the defaults. That works perfect. So let me just explain everything on this. So this first list here, as it says, object prefab to building parts, that is the list which will contain every single building part that you're going to use. So like if you press 1, for instance, when you're in play mode, it will spawn a foundation. However, if the foundation is not in this list, it will throw an error to the console and say, you know, your list isn't of size, because you're referencing that you want to spawn something, but you haven't actually linked anything up to spawn. So yeah, everything you want to spawn needs to be in this list. Then secondly, you've got the main player controller. So this is the controller where your camera is hooked up. So if you're using the Unity standard assets first person controller like I am, you'll notice that the parent doesn't actually have the camera linked up to them. It's like linked up to the parent, that is. You go to the child and you see the camera is there. It's actually on the child object. So that's the object you want to drag over, is the child. So in short, you want to drag over the object, the game object, with the camera linked up directly. This is because the objects spawn in front of the camera and use the local position of the camera. If you don't know what that means, don't worry, it's fine, it works. If you do know what that means, then you understand how the objects are going to spawn. Then this next on the list is the initial spawn distance from the player. So this is where the objects will spawn initially away from the player, so that default value 6. Again, feel free to change your values, mess around, and see if you can break it. That's the best way to learn, is you can break it, try and fix it, and then you learn and understand how it works. Then this is the snap distance from the player, so this is how far the object will actually snap to another base part. We're just going to skip these 2 layers quickly, we'll come back to them at the end. This is the scroll amount, the rotate amount of the object. So if you imagine a full turn is 360 degrees, this is 10 degrees each click of your scroll wheel. So like every time you scroll your mouse wheel, it hits another notch. That's 10 degrees. I think that value works pretty well. Otherwise, it seems like the object's clicking into position. It just looks a bit odd. In my opinion, it does. Maybe that's the style you're going for, and that's fine. But 10 just looks alright to me. Next is the max push distance from player. So when you press E, that's how far the player or the object will move to. So it won't go beyond 15 units from the player, that is, and then vice versa for distance to player. So it won't come closer to the player than 3. I know these are just numbers, but once you've seen it working in game, you'll understand what they actually do. Then these two work in the same way. Is every time you press Q and E, it's how much the object is pushed. So if you think the object starts at 0, every time you press E, it will move 1 unit until it gets to 15, and then that's when it will stop. So let's just set them to 1. And then, pardon me, these lists here you don't want to touch. These are for, so when you place an object in play mode, it will add to this list, so you can see how many objects you've actually got in your scene. And then, for example, if you wanted to go in and save the positions of these objects, create a saving system for them, this list is going to be the one you want to interact with. So it's called objects placed. If you want to look in the code, and that contains, obviously all the game objects for the ones that spawned, all the positions, all that sort of stuff. Just in case you want to expand the asset to fit your needs. And then this list here is just when you've got an object in hand. So when you press 1 and you've got a foundation, it will tell you all the snap points for that foundation. So let's go back to the layers. So as you can see, it says suggested building objects and then removable. This is so you don't accidentally interact with another object in your scene. So if you've got a built scene, you've got a model in the background, say you've got a house, and you want it to snap to a base part you've got just in front of it, but you're accidentally looking at the house, it won't interact with the house because it's going to be on a different layer. So all the base building objects are on building objects layer. And the same works with removable. If the object is on the removable layer, when you press F, it will delete the object from the scene, cancelling out any opportunity for you deleting the wrong. You might delete the terrain or something. So that's why I've separated the layers, just to handle the issues you may come across. So let's just add them to the layers. So as you can see, I've already got them there because, like I said, I've tried to record this twice already and it's gone wrong. So when you import the asset, you won't have building manager and removable. Just click on add, type in building manager, type in removable as they are here, so capital B, capital M, capital R. And once you've done that, go to these two layers, so add building manager and then add removable, and that's everything you need to actually do. And just make sure you've got the tag as building manager. It should have the tag already. If it doesn't, make sure you've got building manager tag on there. That allows it to use, you know, the object place and snap point name lists. But once you've done that, you're pretty much set to go. So you just want to open up the EZ-BaseBuilding folder and go to building parts, and you'll see that there's two different types of part I've included. So there's like a plain mesh looking one, and then you've got like a wood style one. I'm not an artist or a 3D model or anything, so these aren't perfect by any means. Don't cringe when you see how many verts and, you know, polygons were in these, because I didn't make them to be optimal. But just for this video I'm using them because for you to add your own objects it's going to be a completely separate video, because it's a bit more advanced and it's going to take a bit more time, and I just kind of want to get this video done quite quick. So we're going to be using the plain ones. So don't worry about any of this code in here, this just works. Like I said, when you want to add your own objects, I'll explain everything you need to add. So let's just go over to Builder Manager and make sure we drag and drop the objects we want to use in the scene over into that list. So like I said, I'm going to be using the plain ones. I'm just going to drag over the plain ones. So plain as door, foundation, pillar, stairs. There's only one type of stairs because I didn't feel like we needed a wood one because they're going to be pretty similar. Same with the torch. And then a wall. I'm going to drag across the half wood wall because I didn't include a half plain wall, just because I thought I didn't need one. And that's all you need to do, it's all set up for you. So you just want to click on play, and to spawn in the first object, just press 1. That spawns the foundation, just like that. 2 is for pillars, so there you go. And that's pillars, so 3 is for the wall. 4 is a door frame. Let's get a torch down quickly. So you can Q and E push it away. So Q, and then let's get ceilings in. So that's 5 for ceilings. And there you go. You've got your first little base. It's fairly simple to use, and it works. You know, like I said, I tried to exclude a lot of the bloat that other base building or modular building assets include. If you just take a look over the right over here, you can see this is all your objects you placed. And when I have an object spawned in, so 1, you can see down the bottom right, it will say foundation post as the snap point name, and then same for pillar, wall, you know, ceiling, stairs, and what have you. So if you show you scroll wheel to rotate, you can rotate when you're snapped to create, you know, your own creations of angles and what have you. You know, create a boundary or a wall, or, you know, if you're making a garden, or I don't know, whatever your game style is, you know, try to keep that in mind and adapt it for that. And it doesn't just work for foundation, you can rotate any object, you know, walls, ceilings, stairs, you know, half walls, all that sort of thing. That's pretty much it. If you want to remove objects, just go up to it and press F, make sure you're looking at it. You know, it works when you've got objects snapped to the actual foundation. If you delete the foundation, I'm going to snap that on there. If you delete the foundation, obviously the pillar's going to be floating there. Same as like walls and stuff. But yeah, so that's. I hope you understood the basics of what I tried to get across in here. So if you have any questions or feedback, you know, criticisms, whatever, I'm welcome to any of it. Feel free to just put it in the comments of this video or email me. You know what your thoughts are on this. And yeah, so I hope I you know persuaded you to have a look at the asset. You know, if you're not satisfied, I'll be happy to, you know, resolve that with you. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye bye.